Glad you got that out of your system before I was recording, I guess. What's up, guys? Sio here with week 9 of the NES. This week we are taking on Beard, coach of the New York Aqua Jets. In order for us to make playoffs, we have to win out pretty much, or if not win out, we have to get a lot of help and win pretty much everything and win big. So we kind of need to make sure that we're using all of our new stuff well and quickly. This week we are facing Venusaur, Medicham, Umbreon, Cofagrigus, Mega Charizard X, and Sylveon. He left behind Scizor, Galvantula, Gligar, Furfrou, and Scolipede. So I kind of wanted to get rocks on this team and phase stuff around, so that's what Donphan is this week. It's a leftover Stealth Rock, Roar, Rapid Spin, and Fire Fang set. Fire Fangs to counter Scizor, which is one of his main forms of defog. Max HP, max defense, and an attack increasing nature with a little bit of attack. It's kind of weird, but it's mostly bulky with a little bit of offense. He doesn't really have anything to stop Roar, so once I get Stealth Rocks up, I can kind of just phase stuff around. I also have a Light Clay Jirachi with Zen Headbutt, Reflect, Iron Head, and Ancient Power. Max HP, max speed, and a little bit of attack. Ancient Powers for Charizard before it Mega Evolves, or after it does, I guess. Reflect ends up working out pretty well because a lot of his main attackers on his team are physical outside of Sylveon. And then Zen Headbutt and Iron Head are for flinches and stuff. I don't really rely on that ever, but you never know, I guess. I also have Dodrio, which is a Choice Scarf, Brave Bird, Thrash, Knockoff, and Quick Attack set. Max attack, max speed, and a little bit of speed F. Brave Bird honestly does a lot to his team, so I'll probably end up just clicking that more often than not. After Cofagrigus goes down, I can click Thrash pretty freely as well. I'll have to be careful of Umbreon because it's probably going to have foul play, so I'll have to make sure to not lock myself into anything before that goes down, I guess. Next up is Rotom Heat with Fire EMZ, Overheat, Volt Switch, Pain Split, and Hidden Power Rock. Enough speed to outspeed something, I believe it's Charizard without speed investment, I guess. I honestly don't remember. But Hidden Power Rock does a lot to it. Fire EMZ Overheat basically OHKOs anything else on his team, or if not, Fire EMZ Overheat into regular Overheat does. The cool thing about Inferno Overdrive is that it doesn't drop your special attack by 2 like Overheat does. So I can end up going for 2 of those and end up doing a lot to his team because he doesn't really have a lot of fire resists, I guess. And before I go to Tapu Fini, I guess I'll preview Decidueye. I have Brave Bird, Roost, Spirit Shackle, and Defog on it with a Lumberry. Lumberry is basically just to take a Will-O-Wisp from Cofagrigus if I need to, and get rid of hazards if you set him up. I figured I probably wasn't really going to be needing Defog that much, but I figured it'd be on here if just in case he brought Gligar or something to set up rocks, and I didn't really want him up anymore. Spirit Shackle is mostly just to trap stuff for me to be able to get momentum. I'm not trying to stall anything out, but if I can trap Venusaur in, I could lock it in and go for a Brave Bird or something and do a decent amount of damage. And then finally we have kind of the star of the team, leftovers, Tapu Fini with Sub, Calm Mind, Ice Beam, and Moonblast. Max HP, max defense with a defense increasing nature, and 4 special attack. With this, I'm actually able to pretty much completely hardwall Umbreon and Gligar, and set up kind of for free on them and kind of just sweep, which is kind of nice. A Gligar Earthquake only does 20%, which doesn't actually pop a substitute, and unless Umbreon has like Hidden Power, Poison, or Electric or something, it can't do more than like 10% to Tapu Fini with anything, so that's kind of nice. So plan for this game, even though he didn't bring as many bugs as I was hoping, is still to get up rocks and phase as quickly as possible. Try to weaken Sylveon and Venusaur a little bit because they're the bulkier Spidef stuff on his team, and then sweep if I can get Tapu Fini basically in on Umbreon for free at all. So I'm going to go ahead and lead Donphan and pivot if I need to. He leads Medicham, which is fine, I guess. If he goes for a fake out, I should be able to just get leftovers recovery and just get back up to sturdy, so it doesn't matter. He actually gets a crit, which is kind of annoying because then I only recover up to 91. I guess I'm not actually 100% sure if I would have recovered all the way up to leftovers, but I would have been into better health. Either way, I can live Ice Punch or High Jump Kick or anything that he wants to go for here. So I'm going to get Rocks up because he can't get rid of them unless he has Defog Charizard, I guess. But, so I go for Rocks here. Zen Headbutt does about 33%, so I can live another one if I want to. But I don't really want to stay in here. I'll switch to Decidueye because it should be able to take a hit fairly well. I underestimated Medicham though because it's still a 2-hit KO, so I'm just going to have to double out into Jirachi, who quad resists it and only takes 10%. So at this point I should be able to live anything that Medicham wants to go for. The only great switch he has on my team to this is either Cofagrigus or Charizard, so I use this time to try to get a Reflect up. He ends up staying in to try to go for Drain Punch, I guess. I'm not really 100% sure why, so I'm just going to try to whittle this thing down while I can. I get the first Iron Head flinch actually of the season with Jirachi, even though there's a 60% chance of that. And then finally he ends up actually going Cofagrigus and getting rid of my Serene Grace here. So predicting the Will-O-Wisp, I'm going to go ahead and go Tapu Fini here. Just to try to scout what this thing's going to do for me, I guess. He does go for the Will-O-Wisp, which is nice. And depending on the coverage, I can actually just set up and sweep. I didn't really plan on setting up on Cofagrigus, but if it doesn't have anything to touch me, I should be bulky enough to be able to take even a Shadow Ball and do some decent damage to it. Unfortunately, he has Energy Ball, so it's not really gonna be easy to set up on this thing, or worth it, really. So I'll just double into Rotom Heat, predicting another Energy Ball, and just go for a Volt Switch. Or bluff a Volt Switch, I guess. Because Cofagrigus has Energy Ball, it's actually a little bit more annoying than I gave it credit for. I can go Dodrio, but because Dodrio is so physical, it doesn't actually really do anything to Cofagrigus at all. And now that I'm looking at that coverage, the only thing I can really do is knock off, and that's not worth it. Especially since, because Dodrio is flying, it could actually be Will-O-Wisp still, and I don't want to get it burned. So even though I was planning on using this on Venusaur, I'm actually going to go for the Z Overheat right now. Regular Overheat doesn't kill, but Z Overheat does, which is nice. So Cofagrigus is dead. And that's one less thing standing in the way of Tapu Fini, which is cool. Sylveon comes in, and I just kind of want to gauge what set this thing is. Because it's resisted and does 50%, I figure it's probably a bit more of an offensive set. I'm prepared to sack Rotom here because I don't really need it anymore, so I'm just going to go for another Overheat. He doubles into Umbreon to take the Overheat well, but I'm just going to take HP from it, I guess, and then just Volt Switch out, or try to, at least. Him showing Wish Protect here is fine, because he gets up to full, but he also shows me that he's a very passive Umbreon, probably with Wish Protect, Foul Play, and some random coverage move. He shows that coverage move here in its Sucker Punch, which is interesting, but also means that Tapu Fini just completely sets up in its face for free. He makes the right play and goes Venusaur here, so instead of me being able to set up, I kind of just have to spam Ice Beam for a bit and just whittle this thing down. I'll save setting up Combine for a little bit later, because I can just, again, come in on Umbreon for free. I'm a little bit confused here by the Grassy Terrain, because I think it was just to power up his Grass-type attacks. But because Grassy Terrain gives me recovery as well, it actually ends up working out pretty well for my subset, especially since I get a freeze here. Tom was joking that he was the first person to ever get frozen by a Tapu Fini, and I kind of had to agree, because it's a bit, I mean, he's not the first, obviously, but it's a pretty specific set of circumstances to get rid of Tapu Fini's terrain and then get the 10% chance to actually freeze. So I'm going to keep spamming Ice Beam here because I just want to get rid of stuff. Because he goes Umbreon again, I'm just going to get a free Calm Mind because there's nothing he can do to pop my substitute at all. I'm not going to let him pass into Venusaur, though, because it is still kind of scary, so I'm just going to go for the Ice Beam here. And at this point, the game's kind of over. He goes into Medicham to try to break my sub, but because I'm max defense, it doesn't do that. I think he expected me to flinch still through the sub, but because I was behind a substitute, I had avoided that. And again, because I'm max defense, I'm able to actually take the quick attack and just kill stuff off. Because Umbreon is very bulky, it actually ends up living this Moonblast, which is actually worse for him, honestly, because it allows me to get another substitute up, get another Calm Mind up, and guarantee that I kill any variant of Mega Charizard that he could have. Moonblast and Ice Beam are both neutral to Charizard, so I'll just be going for Moonblast, but I still need to get up to +2 in case it's bulky. And at this point, the game's over. I'm sorry I 6-0'd you, Beard. I didn't really want to do that. Like, I knew Finny won, but I wasn't really expecting to do that. He does show the Thunder Punch, which is good coverage for Finny, but unfortunately, because I was behind a substitute, I obviously lived it pretty well. I'm actually kind of curious. I feel like I probably would have lived it well even if I wasn't behind a substitute, because I was max defense, and Tapu Fini is surprisingly bulky. But obviously that didn't really matter. So good game, Beard. I kind of just had a pretty good type advantage and setup opportunity with Tapu Fini, and once I found that in practice, I was pretty excited to get going into this game. So this is actually setting us up pretty nicely to potentially make a playoff run here. We still have battles against the AC Milanturn, who we've lost to like a million times, Wordfell, and the Nottingham Forest Curse, who we lost to last season and ended up like messing up our playoff seeding, and the Aston Charizards, who are the 3-time NES champions. So we have a pretty uphill battle to go, but I think we can do it. So thank you guys. Drop a like and subscribe, and we will be back next week for our battle against the AC Milanturn. Have a good one. Bye. Where'd my voice go? What's up, guys? Sio here with week 10 of the NES. This week we are taking on the AC Milanturn, coached by Doudsy. If you've been subscribed to the channel from any of my NES stuff, you'll know that Doudsy and I say we have a back and forth, but really he's kind of just kicked my ass every time outside of the NES Season 1 playoffs. He's kind of been like one of my bigger rivals in the league, as I just cannot top his teams for whatever reason, it seems like. But this season we really need to, because basically the winner of this game is in a very good position to make playoffs, barring a couple of other situations that could pop up. But at this point we basically have the same record and differential, so both of us can't make the playoffs because a couple of other teams did really well this season. So this is kind of a play-in playoff game for us. Of course, we had to take down Kyurem-Black again because we didn't ban him last season for some reason. We also take on Arcanine, Fortress, Amoonguss, Mega Gardevoir, and Sock. He also left behind Electabuzz, Slowking, Dugtrio, Togetic, and Hawlucha. I was actually terrified of Hawlucha this week, if I'm being perfectly honest, because I've been noticing that a lot of Hawlucha in OU have been running a lot of Misty Seed sets and stuff like that. Or I guess they've been running Electric Seed sets because they're normally with Tapu Koko. But I was really scared of a Misty Seed set that would have just come in and immediately taken advantage of Tapu Fini, and gone for some kind of flying coverage just to try to take it out or whatever. So I was pretty happy to not see Hawlucha. I was also happy / disappointed to not see Dugtrio, as weird as it is. I actually planned pretty heavily for Dugtrio and have a couple of things that were now meaningless because of it, but I guess that's okay. I guess getting into my team so I can try to describe it a little bit, I have a Shed Shell Jirachi with Future Sight, Hidden Power Fire, Iron Head, and Healing Wish. Mostly special attack and speed with a little bit of attack. Shed Shell is an item that allows you to switch out if you're trapped. It's a pretty specific item that basically only really works for Dugtrio and a couple of other things. But I was pretty excited to bring it because I've noticed nobody's actually brought Shed Shell against Doudsy this season. And it's a very easy way to just kind of switch out against Dugtrio, take advantage of the fact that it doesn't really have the best attack, and try to get some momentum that way. So basically the plan with Jirachi was just to lead Jirachi. If he leads Dugtrio, worst case scenario, normally I'd be trapped and just lose my Jirachi. Because I have Shed Shell, I can just double into Tapu Fini, take an Earthquake pretty easily, and then like threaten out whatever comes in. Obviously that's not happening in this game, but it would have been nice. Next up is Mega Beedrill with Poison Jab, Pursuit, Endure, and Endeavor. I wanted to try something a little bit new with my Beedrill just because U-turn Poison Jab works pretty well, and in hindsight U-turn actually would have been very nice this week, but I wanted Pursuit for Slowking because I didn't want that thing pivoting around my team. A regenerated Rocky Helmet Slowking actually would have done a decent amount, so I was pretty afraid of it. And obviously U-turn would have done a shit ton of damage to that thing, but I kind of wanted to get the damage on the switch out, not on the switch in. So I wanted to run Pursuit instead, but hindsight, that's obviously not very good against this team, so it would have been nice to have U-turn. But Endure Endeavor is obviously the highlight of this set. Endure allows me to basically guarantee that I live the next hit that's incoming at 1 HP. I believe I'm allowed to spam it as well. I'm not 100% certain because I don't really use Endure that often. But I think unlike Protect, you're actually able to continuously Endure to get down to 1 HP if you need to. I probably won't need to because Beedrill doesn't exactly have like the greatest defense in the world. But basically I Endure down to 1 HP, and then Endeavor is a move that reduces the opponent's HP down to my HP. Since he doesn't have a ghost, it's actually pretty safe to just go for this and basically nuke something. The plan was to get it in against Kyurem-Black and reduce that thing to 1, but as you're going to see, that's not actually what ended up happening. Next up is Dodrio. I tried to change the setup a little bit too because I didn't want to be too predictable. This week I'm actually running a Life Orb Early Bird set. This is the first and like only time I'm ever going to run Early Bird probably. But Early Bird's an ability that allows your sleep counter to reduce by 2 ticks instead of by 1 tick every turn. Very specific, but I wanted to use this as an Amogus switch in because I didn't really have anything that wanted to take a Spore. Like I could have switched into Tapu Fini and blocked the Spore, but then immediately had to switch back out again because it's a poison type. So obviously that wouldn't have really worked that well. And then with a Life Orb, I'm actually able to do a pretty decent amount of damage to stuff, as well as outrun anything on his team that's not Scarfed. So I'll have to scout for Scarves and just make sure. The only real Scarfers that he has on his team, honestly, are Kyurem and Sock. Unless he like super swerves on me and tries to run a very offensive Arcanine. But I feel like I can handle that somewhat well this week, I guess. Next up, we have Tapu Fini with a Wakan Berry to reduce an electric type attack. With Surf, Moonblast, Reflect, and Defog. Max HP, enough speed to outrun an uninvested Arcanine, I believe. And the rest in special attack just to try to do as much damage as possible. So the goal for this Fini is to basically be a lure for one of the first 2 things, either Kyurem-Black or Arcanine. Both of those have physical electric coverage in Fusion Bolt and Wild Charge respectively. And both of those are kind of the only thing that can actually hit Tapu Fini at all. So I expect to basically be in against one of those 2 as they go for that attack, and then be able to revenge kill or at least do a bunch of revenge damage. It seemed to work pretty well in practice, so I'm actually pretty excited. Next up is Flame Warp Guts Hariyama, Bullet Punch Knockoff, Fake Out, and Close Combat. Honestly, Hariyama's set doesn't really need to change most weeks because it kind of just fills that role of like late game priority sweep cleanup stuff. And it seems to do it pretty well, in my opinion. Flame Orb Fake Out alone just does a ton of damage, and Bullet Punch actually does a decent amount to his team, at least in terms of the stuff that I would be really needing to hit Bullet Punch with anyway. Both of his like faster sweepers at the end get completely wrecked by Bullet Punch, which is nice. So basically, if I can get Arcanine Weekend, mainly Fortress Weekend, in hindsight, it actually would have been nice to have Fire Punch over Close Combat, but I'll get into that later. But if I can get those 2 things Weekend, I should be able to clean up late game with Bullet Punch, and it should work out well. And finally, we have Yachi Berry Donphan with Earthquake, Stealth Rock, Rapid Spin, and Fire Fang. Again, the goal with Donphan, like it is most weeks, is just to get rocks up and then threaten stuff physically, just to make sure that it can't Rapid Spin or something for free. So I obviously want rocks as soon as possible because Kyurem-Black and Arcanine are pretty terrifying, but I know doudsy well enough and he knows me well enough to know that that's probably my best option. So I didn't actually want to do that, even though it was kind of predictably the best thing I could have done. So from there, my best lead option would have been to U-turn with Beedrill, but again, I don't have U-turn. So I guess actually, like, by process of elimination, which is never really how you want to start a game, I end up leading Jirachi here because he doesn't have anything that wants to take a Future Sight, and if he did do this lead of Amoonguss and try to counter my lead of Donphan, I was basically able to counter his counter and just go Jirachi and get a free Future Sight off on stuff. But because I was actually afraid of Spore, Future Sight obviously wouldn't have done any damage this turn, so I didn't want to just stay in and try to nuke this thing when odds are it's not going to stay in. But if the off chance it does, I wanted to be able to take my Spore, so I just go hard Dodrio here. He goes Arcanine, which is fine, I guess. He shows that he's Intimidate, which I would have been kind of surprised if he's not, but it's good to know that he's not Flash Fire, I guess. So he shows Intimidate and just switches into Arcanine. There's no real reason for me to stay in with Clarence at all, so I'll just go Donphan now and try to get my rocks up. He is special, which is a little annoying, but I get my rocks up in exchange for getting burned, and I want to talk about this because while this wasn't the best play I could have made, it is the play that, like, at the time I felt like it was the right idea. So in practice, I tried to practice a lot for this week because obviously I was pretty nervous for battling doudsy, but this week I realized that a Will-O-Wisp Donphan still 2-hit KOs Arcanine. It doesn't do like a ton of damage, but it still does like a pretty solid like 55% or so. So even after leftovers, I'll be able to threaten this thing by keeping it at half as I keep rocks up, basically. What I didn't realize at the time is that Fire Fang actually does significantly less to Fortress now that I'm burned, so I should have actually probably just read the Will-O-Wisp coming in and just gone Tapu Fini. Because that would have obviously, for the millionth time this season, blocked the Will-O-Wisp that was incoming, and gave me Tapu Fini momentum. As you see, when he goes Fortress and I go for an Earthquake, it only does like 14%, so probably not the best play for me to stay in and just go for the Earthquake anyway. But I thought he might have actually tried to kill off Donphan there, so I just wanted to get damage off while I could. Since he's obviously going to go for Rapid Spin, I'm actually in a losing battle here because I am burned. I could just spam rocks and keep him up if I want to, but he's actually going to whittle me down slowly but surely with Rapid Spin plus burn. So I'll admit that I rushed rocks here a little bit early, but it does allow me to get into Hariyama for free. I take 5% from a Rapid Spin, but whatever. I get to punch stuff now. I'm afraid of him being afraid of punching stuff, so he goes Arcanine as I go Jirachi again. This time I believe I'm going to make the right switch and just go straight into Tapu Fini. I figure if he just reads me super hard and goes for a wild charge here, then GG, I guess. But he goes for Flamethrower, and obviously that doesn't do anything because it's resisted and does a ton of damage. So I'm just going to get my Reflect up now. It doesn't really help against the thing that comes in, but it does help me against the rest of his team. And that play may seem like it was a little bit risky for me to just go hard Beedrill there, but with Misty Terrain up, there was no chance of him sporing, or if there was, it was just a wasted turn. The worst thing that he could have done to Beedrill at that point is gone for an HP Fire, but I really doubt that he would have gone for an HP Fire with Tapu Fini just sitting in, especially since I normally do run Ice Beam on Tapu Fini. I don't have it this week, obviously, but I do have it if I need to. So I decided it was pretty safe for me to go hard Beedrill there, and here it would have been awesome to have U-turn. Since I don't, I'm just going to go ahead and try to get a little bit of chip damage off on this Amoonguss. As you're about to see, it does literally nothing, because that 30% just gets completely healed back up the next time it comes back in. So again, U-turn would have been awesome, but whatever. There's absolutely nothing that Beedrill can do to Fortress outside of Pursuit Endeavor, and I don't really want to do that right now, so I'm just going to hard out into Jirachi and just try to go for an HP Fire if I need to. He makes a good safe play and just goes Arcanine, probably reading Fire Punch if I'm being honest. So I'm just going to set up a Feature Sight. For those of you that don't know, I guess I didn't really explain it, but Feature Sight is a 2-turn move that does base 120, I believe, psychic damage. So basically it's a super powered psychic attack, but it takes 2 turns to go through. So the point of this was to try to get him on a switch such as this, and then be able to kind of just kill something after. So I'm again going to go Tapu Fini here, as he again just goes for a Flamethrower. And I really want to pause it and talk about this turn coming up, because this next upcoming turn, something dies. I don't care what it is. Like, you can actually go, like, the only thing that even comes close to living a Surf into a Future Sight at this point is actually Kyurem-Black, because rocks aren't up. Like, it's able to actually live somewhat well. It resists the Surf and then takes neutral from a pretty strong Future Sight, but is still able to live it because Kyurem-Black's bulk is just stupid. So I figure he knows that. Even if he stays in and goes for a Wild Charge, I'm able to live because I'm a Conberry, so it's not really the end of the world. But absolutely everything dies with Surf into Future Sight here. I figure he knows that because I just went for Future Sight, and Doudsy's normally the kind of player that will be able to figure that out mid-game. I get completely outread here as I try to double back into Jirachi to get momentum and just lose half my health on a Flamethrower. But as you're about to see, like, that did over 50% to Arcanine, so it would have completely wiped out anything else. Fortress doesn't normally have the most special defense, so Surf would have actually done a little bit more, and then Future Sight should have been able to pick it off. Sock would have guaranteed dropped because Surf would have broken Sturdy, and then Future Sight would have completely wiped it out from there. And Amoonguss again would have resisted Surf, but then just took a bunch from Future Sight. So I'm a little bit annoyed by this play, to be honest, because I feel like I did the right thing here. I may have overpredicted and should have probably just tried to get the kill that I had in front of me, but I figured he knew that, and I was trying to kind of stay on top of not letting Kyurem-Black come in for free, because you don't let Kyurem-Black come in for free ever. You just can't. So annoyingly, my double back into Jirachi to try to catch Kyurem-Black did not work at all because he just stayed in Flamethrower again. I was a little bit annoyed by this one, if I'm being honest, because then I could just go back into Tapu Fini and Surf and kill this thing. He shows Morning Sun, which means that I now can't actually kill this thing if it's specially defensive and HP invested. But I get rewarded with a crit anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter, except for the fact that I lost a bunch of health on my Jirachi. But I am a little bit annoyed that I overpredicted that turn. I think it's like part overprediction and part not just taking the stuff that was in front of me, so I gotta get a little bit better about that in the future. But he goes into Kyurem-Black here. 99% sure he's gonna go for a Fusion Bolt here, but calcing it out, I actually did leave my Tapu Fini at just enough health to be able to live, thanks to the Wakon Berry. So he's gonna go for a Fusion Bolt here. I'm gonna eat my Wakon Berry and live at 10%, which is awesome, and I'm gonna get a huge Moonblast off and nearly kill this thing. If I would have been fully specially invested, I could have stood a chance to kill this thing off, but I needed the speed to be able to outspeed Arcanine, and I needed the HP to be able to live the attack in the first place. So there's nothing that I could have really done about that. I'm going to go ahead and sack off Donphan here because it is burned and not really doing a whole lot to his team. I'll just let this play out, actually, because I kind of want to recap what happens in these next couple of turns. So I have the Yachi Berry, which is awesome, but I didn't really calc how much the Yachi Berry was actually going to do for me. Yachi Berry Ice Beam from Donphan from like a regular Kyurem-Black that's just kind of Spitac invested, I guess. It still does like 50 to 60%, but the point was to be able to kind of live a surprise attack from full, and be able to get rocks up or something against this if I needed to. Hindsight, I probably should have just doubled in a Jirachi there, because he's obviously not Scarfed since he went for Fusion Bolt and Ice Beam. I didn't really need Jirachi as much anymore. I think hindsight me was afraid of letting Fortress just kind of run rampant without Hidden Power Fire on my team. But I should have been aggressive and just went Jirachi here because I would have been able to fire off an Iron Head on something if I wanted to. As well as scared Kyurem out, which is nice. But instead, obviously I didn't do that. I went Donphan, sacked it off for kind of no reason, and then went Hariyama. I'm going to go for a Bullet Punch here just because it's the damage that I need to do, but as you're going to see, that is absolutely nothing to Fortress. Again, would have been nice to have Fire Punch here because I could have just wiped this thing out. But instead, I switched Jirachi late, and he goes for an Earthquake and just wipes out Jirachi. So, I am now forced, unfortunately, because now I actually have nothing for Fortress. I am forced to waste my Endure Endeavor on this. I think because I invested in a little bit in HP, I actually end up living that a little bit more than I wanted to. But I still managed to take myself out from the Rocky Helmet and be able to come back in and kill with a Bullet Punch from here. I just go for the knockoff on the off chance that he switches into something, but he makes the right call and just sacks that off. So he gets Mega Gardevoir in for free, finally, or on a clean switch, I guess. There's not really anything that wants to switch into a Mega Gardevoir at this point. And Tapu Fini is pretty much dead, so I might as well just sack it off here, I guess. Figure out what he's going for, and then probably just go into Dodrio from here and just try to get damage off on stuff. This ends up actually working out a little bit better because I just get to sack Tapu Fini on the Amoonguss switch. Suddenly I'm able to just kind of go in and fire off a Brave Bird on something. Nothing on his team wants to take a Brave Bird. Unfortunately, I don't really want to take a Brave Bird either because you saw that did like almost all of my HP just to be able to take out Amoonguss, who was threatening but probably not as threatening as it could have been. Again, I don't really know why I didn't bring Fire Punch on Hariyama because that would have helped against both Fortress and Amoonguss at this point, and probably changed what I went for on that play. But because I didn't really have anything else for Amoonguss, I had to Brave Bird and wipe it out. He then goes Sock, who shows that he's Mold Breaker, which is both good and bad for me, I guess. On the one hand, it's not sturdy, which is nice because that means that I can technically OHKO it with one hit. The bad news is because I'm not Scarfed, he outspeeds me, probably. I can't really imagine a universe where he's not Scarfed Sock, and Scarfed Sock does outspeed Dodrio, so I have to be careful here. So as much as I really want to just Brave Bird, nuke this thing, and then clean up with Fake Out into Bullet Punch, I know I can't do that because I need to get some kind of damage off on this thing. So it's going to look like a misplay that I go for Quick Attack here, but I promise that I actually knew what I was doing here. He goes for Close Combat and gets the defense drop that I desperately needed because now Fake Out into Bullet Punch actually kills. So I'm just basically going to pin all of my hopes here on Hariyama. So Bullet Punch kills this, and then he gets Gardevoir in at full. I find out after doing a calc that Bullet Punch from full only does like 70 to 80%, so that's a pretty average roll. If I would have managed to keep Rocks up for this battle, the 2 times that he switched into Rocks here might have actually meant that I could have killed with a little bit better of a roll, I guess. And Kyurem-Black was in no universe ever living a Bullet Punch when it switched back in. So overall, I feel like this is another battle that I had with doudsy. Came down to the wire, and came down to Kyurem-Black just having too much fucking natural bulk for me to be able to really come through. I feel like Kyurem-Black was a little bit less scary at this battle than it has been the past like 4 times I've battled it against doudsy. But the rest of his team was so scary that it didn't really matter. There was a lot for me to improve on this battle, and I kind of ended up saying it as I was going through. But the biggest thing for me, I think, was on turn... Oh, this is taking forever. The biggest thing for me was when I ended up sacking Donphan for kind of no reason. It would have been a lot more beneficial for me to keep Donphan around, even if it was just a sack fodder. Even if it was just to hit something with Fire Fang, just to do a little bit more damage. Especially since I feel like Ice Beam was pretty predictable after killing off Tapu Fini, or after trying to go for Fusion Bolt here. Worst case scenario, he was Scarfed and I took a Scarf Fusion Bolt with Jirachi, but I think I would have been able to live 2 of those anyway. I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure I would have been able to. But I guess all of me worrying about Kyurem-Black didn't matter anyway, since I ended up sacking Jirachi to Fortress in a couple of turns. So switching into Jirachi here would have given me a little bit more momentum and given me a pivot at least. I ended up having to play predictably here and just going for a Bullet Punch because I didn't have Fire Punch, which is another huge issue. But overall, after all of the like misplays and misprep that I had, I still only lost 2-0, and it was a pretty close 2-0, honestly. I obviously didn't want to have to use my Endure Endeavor on a Fortress of all things, but it ended up actually helping out quite a lot because it gave it enough chip damage to be able to guarantee that knockoff killed here, I guess. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how I played this week. There were a couple of things, both in planning and battling, that I probably could have done better. But that always seems to happen whenever I battle doudsy, I guess. So we're definitely on the outside looking in for playoffs now. There's still a scenario where we do make it, but it basically involves us winning out by a decent amount and having a couple of other coaches, like specific other coaches, losing out. This battle definitely put us behind the 8-ball in trying to make playoffs this season, so it'll be hard, but I'll still keep trying because there is a hope. My general belief in league format in general, I guess, is don't give up until it's like absolutely actually over and there's really nothing that you can do about it. Even this far into the battle, I was still hoping for I was honestly hoping for a Bullet Punch crit on turn 29 after I saw the damage, but that's the position I played myself into. If I would have had one more sack at the end of the game, I could have switched out, gotten a fake out off, and killed. But I didn't do that because I didn't save Donphan right. So anyway, that was a lot of criticism, I guess, but I feel like I kind of had to talk through that one because that was probably one of my most painful losses of the season, I'd say. Agonizingly close, and there were actually a couple of things I could have done to probably win this game, I think. But I don't want to take anything away from doudsy. I'm just quite frankly tired of losing to him. It seems like every time I play him, it kind of ends up like this, where I put myself in position for a really cool late game sweep and then end up coming just a little bit short. It's how I beat him the first time, I guess, only I managed to kind of like barely come through. So I think him and I are just always going to have really, really, really close battles all the time. It'd just be nice if I could come out on top of one of them. So next week, we take on the Nottingham Forest Curse, coached by Wordfell. She actually beat us last season and kind of messed with our playoff seeding. She doesn't have a win yet on the season, but for some reason, and even she will admit this, like, she plays me better than she plays like pretty much anyone else in the league. So again, I don't take any of my opponents lightly, but I'm definitely not taking Word lightly. She already beat me last season, so I don't know why I would, but yeah. Drop a like and subscribe if you guys are interested. Thank you guys for coming by, and I will see you next time.